It's okay.
That means you wear live yet.
I'm actually still not. What's good, chat? What's popping? What's popping, chat? What's good, chat? What's popping? What's popping, chat? Popping, chat.
What's
Crazy.
what's
popping?
Eating dinner. Oh my god.
Why?
I don't know. I have eaten 4 meals today.
Don't starve. Hey chat, hello in. Welcome.
Let's see.
Thinking about interesting things. I never did do that.
Monster Hunter.
I am doing some Monster Hunter stuff right now, but I'm probably not going to talk about it a ton on stream unless people want me to. In which case, you can get a little bit of a teaser to the Ray Dow video, and I can talk about what I have so far.
I'm very excited for the endemic life stuff when you get around to that.
I'm definitely going to probably make the next one an endemic life.
Ooh, like
After Ray Dow.
Nice.
I was thinking trying to get the Ray Dow video out tonight, but it looks like
God.
that's going to be impossible.
Yeah.
Because
what endemic life do you think you do? Blech. Oh my god, I cannot speak.
I'm probably going to do something simple. Maybe ruffed lizards or the butterflies or something like that.
Butterflies? Myriads
the myriad.
or quadruflies?
Quadruflies? What is your favorite dinosaur? My favorite dinosaur is Fran the Acrocanthosaurus, who is depicted in the background.
I need to figure out which one of the little nose biters is my favorite one.
There's a lot of those.
There are
a lot of small dinosaurs.
The first ones that come to mind are Archaeopteryx, Sinosauropteryx, and Microraptor.
Microraptor's a pretty solid pick. I do like Microraptor
I
a
don't
lot.
know a lot about Microraptor.
Do you think any dinosaur gave live birth? No, we have no evidence of viviparous dinosaurs. Pretty much all of them lay eggs. Chickens are small. They're pretty small as far as dinosaurs go. I don't know what I want to do up here.
I mean, aren't you cutting all that out and putting it in the other journal?
Shit, probably. Shoebills look like dinosaurs. That's because shoebills are dinosaurs. Little known fact for you. We got a fact.
Shoebills are in fact the world's angriest dinosaurs.
I don't think that's true.
No, yeah. I think they're the world's angriest looking dinosaurs.
Yeah, shoebills are dinosaurs, just like all birds. All birds are all equally related to all non-bird dinosaurs.
I think geese have a hatred in them that nothing can match.
You'd be pissed too if you were constantly covered in the easiest to stain color.
Yeah.
Are you gonna watch the new Jurassic World? Yes, absolutely. Could T-Rex beat my dog in a fight when she gets angry because I forget her treats? No, probably not. I don't think so. In terms of new dinosaur stuff, or just new paleontology stuff in general, there really has not been a ton this week. What does LGBTQ have to do with dinosaurs? I think that it's important to encourage the idea that science is for everyone, because it is. And so, because I've dealt with a lot of, homophobia and queerphobia in science in the past, from, people who are relatively well-respected scientists, I think it's important for me to make, the choice to be like, it is chill to be queer. You don't have to worry about, watching me or building a relationship with someone like that, and then finding out that they are, homophobic or something like that. Because that sucks. It sucks really bad.
Someone's asking what, someone was, sorry.
Welcome up. What's your question, lover?
Do you know the nigger source?
Alright.
Idiot again. Anyway, someone was asking about what some of the most unique niches were that animals filled at one point.
It's a good question. We don't really have giant, we do have like orcas, but there isn't really today a niche of giant aquatic predator like there used to be in the Mesozoic.
As in, like, giant predator eating other relatively large things?
Eating other relatively large things. I mean, we do have blue whales, but...
Yeah.
Part of it is that we don't really have any specialized ammonite eaters anymore, because we don't have any ammonites anymore. So you don't see stuff like globidens. Zilliver, it's not. It's pronounced Nigersaurus. It's from the country Niger in Africa. It's discovered by Paul Sereno.
Oh, do you think we'll ever find a dinosaur preserved as well as the Borealopelta found in Alberta?
In my opinion, Psittacosaurus is preserved a little bit better than Borealopelta. I think Borealopelta has a higher, like, it's definitely, I think there is a possibility that we'll find something as large as Borealopelta that's as well preserved, but the Zhejiang Psittacosaurus is probably the best there is. Can I eat a dinosaur bone? You could probably use it for soup stock, but I doubt you could eat it unless it was really small. I mean, a fossil bone, absolutely. I put fossil bones in my mouth all the time.
I was actually just looking at. Have you? I gotta ask. Are you a big fan of the Jurassic Park series?
I like the movies. Yeah, I've seen all of them.
I had no idea that they. I had no idea they had added the Nigersaurus in there. That must have been a new addition.
It's gonna be another one of these streams, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
What got you interested in your field? I got really into dinosaurs when I was young, and I kind of just never stopped being into them. Thank you so much, Nick of the Wild Wild West. I do appreciate that so much for the tiny dinosaur. It's my favorite award. I do love that one.
Let's see. Someone asked what species of dinosaur survived the longest after the meteor. All the ones that are around today.
Yeah, well, in terms of species that really stuck around through the extinction before diversification, it was like early Galoanceres, so like kind of chicken duck things. Is it true that you don't find them complete, but have to put them together? To a degree. I mean, that's true for some specimens, but there are complete dinosaur skeletons that were found articulated and complete with all the bones in place, like Eutyrannus, Sinosauropteryx, Borealopelta. A lot of the time we do find articulated specimens, but we sometimes find unarticulated specimens that are usually the result of a body falling into a river and then being pulled apart by the currents, and then those bones all kind of just end up laying in a pile. And then from there, we use the law of, not the law, but the principles of homology to put those bones in the same place, because across all organisms, they're going to have bones in roughly the same place. So it is incredibly rare if you're using homological principles to get something wrong regarding the position of certain bones. What classifies a dinosaur? It is an archosaur with avimetatarsalian ankles. It has I believe most dinosaurs, no, not all dinosaurs, just theropods have a semilunate carpal. They have elongated zygapophyses on the neck. They have a synsacrum above their hips. They have a perforate acetabulum in their hips. Basically just a bunch of specific traits on the bones that ascribe to all dinosaurs. Do you all keep finding new species today? Yeah, we found about 52, and I say we, I mean the entire paleontological community, found about 52 new species of just dinosaurs last year.
Do you know how many have been described this year?
I don't know about described.
Or found this year?
But there were a bunch of dinosaurs that are definitely new species that just haven't been named yet that were found in Australia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. There's no proof. What do you mean there's no proof, Dawson Morgan? I'd love to chat about what you think is viable proof of the existence of dinosaurs. Who'd win a fight, a Stegosaurus or 20 Velociraptors?
Velociraptors are about 20, though.
20 is a lot.
20 is a lot.
I don't know. I think a Stegosaurus could probably still win that. I've never seen a dinosaur in real life. You definitely have, because you've seen a bird. I can guarantee it. If you've seen a pigeon, you've seen a real dinosaur. My favorite invertebrate from the Devonian. I dig the Devonian Eurypterids. The early terrestrial Eurypterids from the Devonian. What's a mass extinction? Did a mass extinction happen before the dinosaurs? Yes, a couple of them. Devonian mass extinction, Permian mass extinction. The Permian mass extinction was the largest mass extinction in the history of Earth. Like the highest percentage of taxa just disappeared. Tell me which was the largest between T-Rex, Giga, and Spinosaurus. T-Rex was the heaviest and therefore the largest because when we're judging the size of animals, we use mass. Oh, thank you, Iggy. I appreciate that. Mass, like massive, like the low taper fade? Yes, exactly. How do you know for a fact that dinosaurs roar? We don't. We don't know that. We have very little idea what dinosaur vocalization was like. We know they probably didn't make mammalian roars like lions or tigers did. But we have a sample size of 2 when it comes to any sort of vocal organ in dinosaurs, and a sample size of 1 when it comes to specifically soft tissue vocal organs. They have a syrinx, right? Not necessarily.
I don't know if we have evidence of that.
We don't have a syrinx. The syrinx shows up in birds. Panachosaurus has kind of an avian / crocodilian larynx. It's like a low down larynx, so it's not quite a syrinx. Would you rather discover the spine was actually just a blob or that T-Rex could shoot lasers? Realistically, I don't know what evidence for either of those would look like, but I think it'd be cool if T-Rex could shoot lasers.
I think that would be fun.
Can I feed my dinosaur a little salami as a treat? I don't know how it would handle the sodium levels. Can you say for a fact that dinosaurs didn't have hair? We know they didn't have hair because of phylogenetic bracketing. Hair is exclusive to mammals. We do know that a lot of them didn't have wings because wings don't just show up in the wing bones, if that makes sense. They show up in the form of osteological correlates that sit throughout the body. You can tell things about whether or not an animal was flying or descended from flying ancestors based on things like its hip structure and the thickness and fusion of some of its bones. And we know things like T-Rex didn't have wings because they do not have anatomy that is at all compatible with flight. But there are some winged dinosaurs.
There are some people asking about the formation and breaking apart of Pangea as a role in mass extinction events.
Not really, as far as I'm aware. The end Permian, I don't know about the formation of Pangea as responsible for mass extinction. I think the Devonian was thought to have been caused by volcanism. But the end Permian mass extinction, I know the leading hypothesis is volcanism. I'm working on a literature review regarding the end Permian right now. The geography of Pangea at the time the extinction was occurring definitely contributed. It was super flat, which made normally less volatile climate events much, much more threatening to the denizens of Pangea at the time. But in regards to the formation and breaking apart of Pangea causing mass extinction, it's not super plausible. Tectonic movement is super slow and usually doesn't happen quick enough for animals to be forced to adapt to the extent that they go extinct. Was the T-Rex in Jurassic Park actually what they looked like? No. You would be best looking at the T-Rex from Prehistoric Kingdom or Prehistoric Planet. What is the likelihood that the T-Rexes actually had wings and their arms were backwards? 0. For a variety of reasons that I've covered in previous videos. But also I will do it again. T-Rex didn't have quill knobs on its arms, so we know that there were no feathers attached to them to the degree that they would have to be for flight. Flight feathers are attached via quill knobs, not just skin. So, we would find that on the bones. Second, all of T-Rex's arm bones are fossilized and accounted for. There's no giant wing supporting structure that could be there because the principles of homology prevent that from occurring. We would see some sort of gradual evolution of T-Rex wings. None of T-Rex's other bones are hollow enough to support flight. There's not enough fusion in the skeleton of T-Rex to show evidence for weight reduction for flight. It has a really imbalanced body for flight, and it has no sternal keel to operate the muscles that are necessary for flight. What about bat-like wings, flightless? T-Rex is certainly flightless. It might have had small display feathers somewhere around its body, but there is just no possibility of really good flight feathers appearing within Tyrannosaurids. That is first a dinosaur fossil. Well, dinosaur fossils have been uncovered for generations. The term the dinosaurs really started getting talked about in the 1820s, but Thomas Jefferson was doing a lot of paleontology. He just didn't believe in extinction, so most of his paleontology was motivated by a desire to see these animals that he thought were still alive in real life. Thomas Jefferson died believing there were giant ground sloths and mammoths somewhere in America. That's part of the reason why he did the Lewis and Clark stuff. Are there any species today that have evolved from dinosaurs? All birds are still dinosaurs. When you evolve from something, you are still that thing, which means humans are apes and birds are dinosaurs. All birds evolved from one common ancestor within Dinosauria. Is it true that some T-Rexes have hairs? Not hairs, but feathers are pretty likely. Not big flight feathers or contour feathers like you would see in birds, but rather, fine downy feathers. Before we found fossils, we had no idea dinosaurs existed. I mean, before the term dinosaur was established taxonomically, there wasn't really that much of even a concept of extinction or old Earth or geological time. How do they know what color the dinosaurs were? Scanning electron microscope analyses of the fossilized cells within their feathers and skin, because the cells that produce certain pigments have shapes that correspond with the pigments they produce. So we can identify just from looking at them with a teeny tiny microscope that some cells were producing eumelanin pigments and some are producing pheomelanin pigments.
Brody Smith, the chicken is not, well, I guess it is a distant ancestor of the T-Rex. It is as much it is as related to the T-Rex as every other bird is. Avian dinosaurs branched off from other theropod dinosaurs quite a bit before T-Rex would have even been around.
In the mid-Jurassic is when we find the first bird lineage dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So T-Rex was coexisting with things that looked a lot like chicken and were definitely what you would call a chicken. And so it's not that T-Rex evolved into chicken over millions of years. T-Rex was already kicking it with the things that would evolve into chicken during the end of the Mesozoic. And only one of them survived the extinction, which was the Gallowinceres, the chickens and ducks. The most realistic depiction of the Spinosaurus I've ever seen is probably Prehistoric Kingdom. What dinosaur is Fran? She's an Acrocanthosaurus, so you're close. She's an Allosauriod. She's the last Allosauroid in North America.
So the way they found out how Parasaurolophus sounded is the Parasaurolophus has like a big bony crest on its head that's hollow, and scientists kind of used it like a tuba or something like that.
Yeah, they made a cast of it, and they reconstructed soft tissue surrounding it with flexible like rubber. And then they passed air through it to generate a range of frequencies that they thought Parasaurolophus could produce by blowing air through its tube.
Yeah, so because of the fact that it was a big bony structure and not something small or I think soft like a larynx, it was preserved a lot better, and that's one of the few things we actually know about how dinosaurs sound.
And it's not even like how they sounded per se, it's a range of sounds they could have produced.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't know what Parasaurolophus's calls actually would have sounded like or anything like that. But we do have some good knowledge about the range of sounds they could have produced, which is cool. What are your favorite dinosaurs? Acrocanthosaurus, Ionosaurus, Bajatosaurus. I like Shantungosaurus a lot.
I'm a big fan of all the ones that I would consider to be nose biters. All the little ones that like fly, or not, well, some of them probably maybe had some degree of flight, but things like Archaeopteryx or Microraptor.
Yeah, those are good ones. How big were velociraptors compared to the ones in the Jurassic Park movie? At the time, you can answer that if you want. You want to do the Deinonychus bit?
Sure. Okay. So actual velociraptors would be, I think, about the size of a turkey. And when it comes to the velociraptors in the Jurassic Park movies, those originally, the velociraptors in those movies are actually based off of Deinonychus, because one of the paleontologists who was like working on the movie or kind of a consultant for the movie referred in a book he wrote to Deinonychus as Velociraptor Anterapus, which is how they ended up being named Velociraptor in the movie. Velociraptor is a smaller dinosaur.
Yeah, and they were thought to be a large American species of Velociraptor at the time, but we now know that Velociraptor only contains species from Mongolia, Velociraptor mongoliensis.
There's someone who's been asking about how to get into paleontology.
If you're talking about the course requirements, there is a lot of general biology and geology stuff that you should take. I would recommend either a biology, geology, or adjacent major in college. If you're majoring in one, then try and at least minor in the other, if not double major. Volunteer at your local museums for sure. You're not going to get a lot of actual, really intense in-school paleontology experience in undergrad. You will have to get that through volunteer programs or through internships or whatever it may be, because it's intense scientific work, and it's not really something that someone who is not taking bio or geo for paleontology can really get into, if that makes sense. If you could have one dinosaur as a pet, which one? It would be a bearded vulture. Thank you for the gift, Rain3033. Are dinosaurs chill or nah? Dinosaurs are pretty chill.
Some of them are pretty
chill.
not chill. Some of them will bite you. There is someone requesting to come up.
Okay. Oh, it's Oblivion. Okay. Nice. I'm a Oblivion head. Welcome up, Oblivion. How you doing?
Hey,
How's it going?
doing all right. Also, in addition, I have multiple things to say. One of them is, in addition to essentially Crichton himself modeling Velociraptor and everything off of Deinonychus, a lot of people, they'd be like, oh, like, was Deinonychus that big? No. The reason why they were that big is because Osborne was the one to discover Utahraptor, correct?
Ostrom, yeah.
Yeah, Ostrom.
He was working on Utahraptor at the time. But
Yeah, it wasn't described or named, but they're like to Spielberg, yeah, we have a raptor the size that you want it.
Yeah, although the Velociraptors in the Jurassic Park movie aren't that large compared to Deinonychus. They're in the size bracket in the way that like Goliath is in the size bracket for T-Rex. You could get a Deinonychus that big. But
I mean, my only issue with the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park, even though their body proportions, like, even though they are very accurate to the time, my issue with the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park, they're a little too compact. Like, if anything, like, their abdomen is a little too short.
yeah, they do that with, I feel like, a lot of the Jurassic Park dinosaurs, where they make their like shoulders and hips too close together. Because dinosaurs in general had very long torsos.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. Like, also they made them a little too tall at the hips. Cause like, a great video looking at the dimensions of Jurassic Park dinosaurs is Goji Center, when they did the video on like Sue versus Rexy, and they actually did proportion, like, yeah, like Rex, like when they did the Jurassic Park T-Rex, especially Rexy, like at the hips, Rexy's just taller. Like, they just made them really tall, especially at the hips, but then they made them really compact.
Yeah, I think part of that might be that they were trying to go for a more bird-like look, which is interesting, because that's like one of the things that dinosaurs have different than birds, is that their bodies are so much longer and more lean, which makes sense because they're not adapted for flight or anything like that, and they don't have pygostyles. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about for sure.
Yep. Also, someone brought up a very interesting point, which is the difference between Sarcosuchus and Deinosuchus. And what I find interesting, especially when talking to people about paleontology, especially when you get into like Crocodilomorpha, is the fact like Deinosuchus is a true crocodile, but Sarcosuchus is not.
Yeah, Deinosuchus is super cool. Sarcosuchus is way less related to modern crocodiles than a lot of people expect it to be. Partially, I think, because it looks so much like a gharial, and those are true crocodilians. But the Gara on Deinosuchus, or sorry, not Deinosuchus, but the Gara on Sarcosuchus's mouth is like completely convergent.
Yeah. Mhm. And Deinosuchus is a Gatoroid. Like I think it is classified in the group
Yeah,
that contains the alligators.
it is. Yes, it's an alligator. It's an alligatoroid. And then yeah, the only thing that's alive within that group is
Is it the Chinese alligator?
it's alligators. So it's both species of alligator, and then Paleosuchus, Melanosuchus, and then all of the other caimans. So Melanosuchus is black caimans. Paleosuchus is spectacled caiman. Oh no, it's the dwarf caiman and the smooth-fronted caiman. So it's like the little caimans,
Yeah.
the true alligators. But yeah, Deinosuchus is so cool. It's such a cool animal.
Yep. There's so much that I like. It is to talk about. I find Archosaurus, specifically Crocodilomorph, so interesting.
Yeah,
Especially the fact, like I tell people, like this is my favorite phrase when talking about them because they're like, oh, like alligators and crocodiles like are unchanging, and they're like, oh no. At one point, crocodilians were so diverse, and my favorite phrase is, we had every flavor of crocodilian except flight.
yeah. I mean, kind of depending on how you define like crocodilian, you could make the case that pterosaurs were also they're kind of like would you say that pterosaurs are about as crocodilian as Sarcosuchus is? Not like Archosaurian, but like crocodilian.
Not necessarily. Like they're just so anatomically different.
That is true.
Yeah.
I would say the better case is pterosaurs are as much of a dinosaur as a tuatara is as much as a squamate.
Okay. Well, tuatars are squamates. They're just not lizards or snakes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I see what you mean. Yeah. Pterosaurs are crazy.
Yep. And before I go, because I do have something to do, I will say, okay, I will say this when it comes into, dinosaurs. Justice for Enoceratops.
Yeah.
Like if I had to group my top five, Acrocanthosaurus being one, Enoceratops being two, I have a soft spot.
That's my
Like,
top two as well. Acrocanthosaurus and or not Enoceratops, Iosaurus.
yeah, I love Enoceratops, like the forward-facing narrow-filled ceratopsians. God, I love them.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, I'm gonna dip. I see you later.
See you later too, man.
See ya.
Have a great night.
You too.
I love ceratopsians. They're so cool. This person says, I know JW was inaccurate, but how inaccurate was JW's dinos? Pretty inaccurate. They took a lot of creative liberty, and they made a lot of them look very crocodilian.
Some of I think they vary in terms of accuracy, with some of them being better and
Some
some
of them
of
are-
them being far, far worse.
They range from acceptable to, like, McDonald's Happy Meal toy.
Yeah.
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 It's very variable, but generally they're not that great. What dinosaur is Franchi's and Acrocanthosaurus? Thank you, ReadVR, for the tiny dino. How does it feel to study something that didn't exist? Dinosaurs currently exist. They're currently an extant taxonomic group. Dinosauria is a group that includes living animals, which are actually the primary study group that I use. Can you talk about Allosaurus? Sure. I worked on an Allosaurus a couple years ago in the Morrison Formation. And it, like many of the famous charismatic Allosaurus specimens, had some really nasty paleopathologies. A paleopathology is an injury that survives the fossilization process. So this Allosaurus specifically Oh my god, look at the roof of that animal's mouth.
Ooh.
This Allosaurus specifically had a rib fracture that this Allosaurus in particular had a rib fracture that healed really poorly and then got infected. So there was this giant lesion of tissue about halfway down the rib, and it bent in the wrong direction. So that was super cool to look at. It was not a super complete Allosaurus specimen, but it was. I don't even know if it was assigned to a specific species of Allosaurus because most of those are diagnosed from head structure. I'm assuming it was Fragilis because only Fragilis had been found at the site that I was digging. It was a riverbed site, so you didn't get a lot of complete material. But that was really cool. You know, predators in general live very rough lives. I love non-mammalian synapsids. They're awesome. Yeah, the Devonian does not have any typical dinosaurs, definitely. But I have done Devonian digs. I've never done any research on, Devonian life. I want to get into it. I've been working on some Devonian stuff, not in a research way, but just doing fossil prep, which has been awesome and fun. Particularly megalithiids. I believe Megalithes indeterminate. What is the gayest dinosaur? Probably the albatross.
Are albatrosses like
They're notoriously
exceptionally gay?
They're notoriously long-term homosexual.
Nice.
They're not like one mating season birds. They'll
Right.
settle down for a cottagecore lesbian lifestyle for many years.
That's cool.
What's the most disturbing dinosaur you've ever researched on or caught your attention, like scary wise? It's a living bird for sure. Snowy sheathbills made me the most uncomfortable out of any animal that I researched. I looked at them relatively briefly before I realized that they weren't super applicable to the group that I was studying. They're morphologically similar. Milo, I have the exact same thing happen to me all the time in reverse. I'm like, I study dinosaurs, and they're like, you do archaeology? And it's... our fields are very confused very frequently.
I don't understand the confusion.
But snowy sheathbills are for sure the most disturbing animal that I've ever looked at. They're kleptoparasites of many different things. Particularly during the elephant seal breeding season, they will steal milk from mother elephant seals by coming up to their nursing offspring and taking a nipple and drinking milk from the mother elephant seals, like teat. And I think that's one of the only examples of reptiles parasitizing mammals. It's crazy. They're really, really bizarre animals. Are Brachiosaurus long necks just to reach high trees? Yeah, sauropods in general have long necks just because they're browsers. They might have had a display purpose, but they're pretty functional because what we see in sauropod heavy ecosystems is that you have a bunch of different sauropods with necks at different heights, which suggests that they're specializing in eating different heights of plant growth. Did you know the new Jurassic Park movie is coming out? I did.
Oh my gosh.
What does
Someone was asking about the Jurassic World Rebirth Spinosaurus, so I went and looked it up.
Yeah.
They're not particularly accurate.
Yeah, I mean, the main complaint I have is with the skull. Some people are saying the neck is too short, but we don't have a ton of Spinosaurus neck material. So, it's not...
the first thing I noticed was that the tail is a tube.
The tail is not a tube.
In the Jurassic World... maybe they're showing the one from Jurassic Park 3.
Jurassic World Rebirth Spino has a very, very
okay, never mind.
tail.
All right. I saw one image and was like, damn, that sucks. Okay, no, that's way better. The skull is
I'm not talking about the skull.
a triangle.
It's so wide, too. It's like shaped like a wedge.
Oh, yeah.
And they also did this thing...
Isn't that like a pretty common theme with their...
with their Spinosaurids? Yeah. Because they make them crocodile-shaped. But
weird.
Also... they did this thing where they put the ear in the temporal fenestra, which is not where the ear goes. Those are where the jaw muscles attach. That animal cannot close its mouth. Did the T-Rex have subspecies? It did not have subspecies. Rex is one species of Tyrannosaurus, and there are two species in the genus. There's T-Rex and T. macraensis.
Dovey, Jurassic World hybrids would not be possible in the modern day. For one, bringing Mesozoic dinosaurs back from the dead would basically just be impossible.
Yeah.
Because any DNA from them would have broken down millions of years ago, and two, the hybrids that they make, don't think we could do something like that.
I mean, yeah, they would kind of just be a mishmash of genetic material, and they are engineered in a way where it's like, I don't know if we have that much precision over the way that an animal develops currently. There's just not enough. It's accurate, all the dinosaurs shown in the JW Rebirth trailer? No. The Titanosaur has a really, really long tail, which is not a trait of Titanosaurs. The Quetzalcoatlus has kind of a bizarre skull. I let the Quetzalcoatlus skull slide because we don't have a skull from Quetzalcoatlus northropi, and so that's permissible. I wish it was more feathery though, because we do know that Quetzalcoatlus probably had feathers. I'm not sure about the raptor. I haven't seen the Rebirth raptors yet. The T-Rex is more accurate. It's chunkier. It's probably the most accurate dinosaur in the Rebirth trailer. The Spinosaurus is middling. The skull anatomy is pretty poor, but the body in general is in line with some people's opinion of what a Spinosaurus looks like, and those people are qualified when I say that. So I'm not upset about the Spinosaurus from the neck down. The head is kind of bad, but the Mosasaurus is okay, even though it's not a dinosaur. This person says the Rebirth raptors are very similar to the JP3 raptors. In that case, they're not very accurate. Where'd you study? I'm still currently an undergrad. I'm still actively researching. I'm completing my undergrad. I'm not a paleontologist. I'm in a research assistant position right now. But I just spend a lot of time in the field of paleontology and, learning about this stuff. And, I'm not exactly a prolifically published paleontologist, but I feel, know enough to answer a lot of people's questions about what goes on in the field and, do some education, because I have done a lot of paleontology outreach before. I've talked to people about the way that the field works. And I'm passionate about science communication in general.
Giraffes are not related to dinosaurs. Giraffes are mammals. Dinosaurs are reptiles. They just also have long necks. That's just a trait that both evolved.
Yeah, it's called convergent evolution, which is when two independent groups of animals, or any organism really, adapt similar looking or similar functioning features to act as a solution for the same problem. Or fill the same niche, I guess you would say. It's why basically every fast swimming ocean predator has the same body shape. Is their current closest living ancestor to dinosaurs? Not ancestor per se, but descendants, yes. I mean, all birds are dinosaurs. They are just straight up dinosaurs. They're not the closest living relatives to dinosaurs or nothing like that. They are proper living dinosaurs.
Let's see.
Could you agree the Cretaceous is the most terrifying? Why? I think the most dinosaurs are known about in the Cretaceous, and that's what makes people the most interested in it. However, you have to account for recency bias because more recent fossils are more likely to remain preserved. So I think that any of the geological periods is probably going to be interesting in its own right. It's just that, we haven't found some of the most interesting fossils from those times yet.
So Diego, in terms of the areas, the largest numbers of fossils are found, there's a lot from a few areas of the United States.
Yeah, the Midwest is huge for fossils.
And I believe there's a pretty big concentration in an area of Mongolia.
Yeah.
Though part of the reason, especially with the United States, that so many have been found in certain spots is just because that's where funding was available. Like in the United States, I think the U.S. has some of the largest amount of fossil material that has been discovered in it. And then part of the reason for that is just because of a historical, maybe not, I don't know if abundance is the right word, but relative abundance of funding and opportunity for people who were studying paleontology.
Yeah, like the Bone Wars and the dinosaur renaissance and all those sorts of times where you got big booms in funding for paleontology definitely involved a lot of U.S. stuff. But there's a ton of actual like fossil material in South America and China.
Yeah,
China's maybe the leading spot in the world for paleontology right now. Why are theropods called lizard hipped, not bird hipped? Like, what happens? Aren't they bird ancestors? The earliest theropods had hips that were structured very similar to their ancestors, which are the crocodiles, and so they were called lizard hipped. But as the theropod lineage, evolved and went on, they started to develop hips that were more and more similar to birds. But we didn't know that when the first theropods were found. We found megalosaurs, which have hips that are relatively similar to the first theropods. And so when the name Saurischia was coined, we only knew about the theropods that looked like, that had hips that looked like the other groups of reptiles. Ergo, lizard hipped. And Iguanodon was named bird hipped. This was way before the idea that birds could have ever evolved into dinosaurs. I mean, other way around, that dinosaurs ever could have evolved into birds. So they were really just going off of like general morphological similarity.
C. Hodges, oil and fossil fuels in general are not made from dinosaurs. They're actually made from decomposed plant matter from the Carboniferous period. The things that would decompose the matter in the ways you would typically find weren't around then, and so they were able to kind of sit and turn into oil and coal and stuff like that.
So what would happen is they would sit in a peat bog and they wouldn't be able to be decomposed with any real efficiency, and you would get very productive ecosystems that would just pile on more and more dead plant matter in this very anoxic environment. And then eventually you would get these big layers of peat that would be buried and dried, and then they would be compressed by pressure and heat, and they would be liquefied and turned into oil. What would be the requirements to have another coal layer? A ton of plant growth, a very wet world, and a very productive ecosystem in close proximity to water, where the water is still and does not facilitate decomposition.
All right. There was something else. I remember that someone asked. Someone asked if we thought that dinosaurs have secretly been brought back to life. No, there are dinosaurs around today. All birds are dinosaurs, but any of the dinosaurs that you would probably usually think of that were around during the Mesozoic era, the DNA from those would have broken down a very, very long time ago, and nobody would be able to bring them back for pretty much any reason at this point.
DNA has a very short half-life, and it's a very, very unstable molecule. Wow, perfect. This Hyneria skull diagram is missing the one bone.
Oh my god. What are you looking at it for?
Hyneria mandible.
Oh, you're looking at it for...
Because, see, Hyneria has actually teeth very similar to Raydao.
Interesting.
If you look at this.
Yeah. Huh.
So it has these big fangs, and then it has... I mean, they're reversed, but they're similar in that they have one type of tooth being born from one tooth-bearing joint. They have pterygoid fangs in the top of their mouth. And then they have, in the bottom jaw, they have two teeth-bearing bones that nest within each other. Oh, perfect. I think I've seen this mandible in person.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, this is the one from...
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun. C. Hodges was asking, how come some dinosaur muzzles are different shapes? What is the perfect shape? There isn't really a perfect shape for heads of animals. Different animals kind of adapt to different things that they're doing and develop head shapes or other parts of their body that are better adapted to the specific niches they're filling. So there isn't really like a perfect shape. It's just that different head shapes are more well adapted to different things. And Noah the Padre fan, dinosaurs are around today. All birds that are around are dinosaurs. The like extinct dinosaurs are not gonna come back.
No, we got Jelly Roll. Welcome up, Jelly Roll. I like your profile picture, Jelly Roll. What's your question?
So, I have 2 questions.
Sure, go ahead.
One is, did Alamosaurus live with Edmontosaurus?
What do you mean live with? They might. I think they lived at the same time, but I don't think they would have shared like a paleo environment. Because it's from Black Peaks, which so far as I'm aware, only includes Alamosaurus and some scattered pterosaur material. But Edmontosaurus is generally farther north than the Black Peaks Formation.
And my second question is, have we ever found convergent evolution in dinosaurs? Like, have we...
Absolutely. Like, do you mean with 2 dinosaur species converging on the same body plan, or just a dinosaur converging on the body plan of another organism?
The first one.
Okay. Yeah. I think there are a couple pretty good examples of that. Let me think about that for a moment. I would have to say my best example would be the convergent evolution of long browsing necks in Dacenturine stegosaurs and sauropods. So, obviously sauropods are known for having those very big, long necks, but there's a group of, not sauropods, stegosaurs from Portugal called the Dacenturines, one of which, Dacenturus, has a super, super long neck that it was using to eat, like, tree material. It has way more neck vertebrae than any other stegosaur. Dacenturus has a ridiculously long neck. And I would say that's a really strong example of convergent evolution because, they're using the same solution to answer the same problem, where they need to, reach tall growing plants, and they are using a long neck to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
No, that's it for now.
All right. Well, have a great night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was gonna say, someone was asking about the
Amanda says, do you think dragons are real and some kind of dinosaur? No, I don't think that.
Jay Downs was asking, do you believe the asteroid wiped them out solo, or did the Deccan traps deliver a 1-2 punch to them? You know more about that.
Jay Downs. Jay Downs. That's the initials of a very awesome paleontologist.
Oh.
Jason Downs.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Jason Downs now. Man, he's so cool. Okay. I have a note set up here about... Oh my gosh. Where are you?
Somewhere up there. Might be the untitled.
It's the one here. So in general, the asteroid is pretty heavily causal. There has been some recent research done, and the thoughts surrounding like the Deccan traps exploding are that they are probably less relevant than previously expected. It's generally swinging in favor of the asteroid kind of initiating a climate cycle that would have killed off all the dinosaurs now. In general, the asteroid would have done it through a relatively rapid global cooling. There were some isotope analyses done on the atmospheric dust, and those indicate that it would have hung in the atmosphere for around 15 years total, and it would have been thick enough while it was in the atmosphere to block photosynthesis from occurring for about 2 years. So that's a 2-year photosynthesis pause. For the northern hemisphere, that would have been probably about 2 years and 6 months of winter weather, and for the southern hemisphere, it would have been probably about a year and a half of winter weather, which explains why the fauna and flora of the southern hemisphere bounced back a lot more quickly than the northern hemisphere. There were also some scattered wildfires, which surprisingly contributed to global cooling rather than heating, because wildfires release soot, which then blocks the incoming solar rays.
J.K. Alid is asking about the diversity of birds during the Maastrichtian and abundance of birds during the Maastrichtian, and also asking about how your bird trip went.
My bird trip was excellent. I'm actually going to start entering my bird information now, because one of the people who I sent with, who is, I have to send this guy my, log on to eBird so we can share our list. ebird.org. It was pretty awesome. Oh my god. Okay. eBird. Sorry, I'm coordinating with my birding group because you just reminded me to do that. I saw loads of cool stuff. Probably the coolest thing I saw was a harlequin duck. I was walking down this line of rocks into the ocean, and it was pretty long. It was pretty far offshore. It was not even a proper trail. It was just kind of a stack of rocks. It was like a tide break. And I went out into the ocean, saw some cool stuff. I saw a great cormorant. And then I turned around and I walked back. And as I was standing on the beach waiting for the rest of the group, one of our members went like, there's a mated pair of harlequin ducks swimming around out there. And I just booked it back up to look at the harlequin ducks. And I saw them for maybe 15 seconds before they went and hid, but they're such beautiful birds. I also saw a pair of buffleheads doing a mating dance, which was super fun. It's always a treat when you get to see birds doing courtship stuff. People say cavemen live with dinosaurs. Cavemen live with birds, and birds are dinosaurs. But no, cavemen did not live with the non-avian dinosaurs. Is it true that sauropods like Brachiosaurus could have lived to the 200s of years? No. Sauropods actually lived pretty short lives. They grew really fast and they died really fast. Most of the sauropod fossils that we have are, I think, no more than 50 years old. And they attain most of their growth in the first few years of their life. Is Frantic our Cowardanosaur? Yeah, she's an Acrocanthosaurus. You know how small birds are like everywhere now? Was it like that during the Maastrichtian? Yeah, you probably had a lot of enantiornithines, particularly in like the southern hemisphere. In terms of numbers, they were definitely in a lot of places. Small animals just have a tendency to be more populous. Yeah, I don't think it would have been a particularly hostile environment to small seed and insect-eating enantiornithines and birds. What is the time period for dinosaurs is the most complex to study, and why? Saying Carcharodontosaurus is so tiring. It's one of my favorite words to say. My favorite paleo artist is probably... I like C.M. Kozman. I like Joshua Knoop. I like Brian Eng. I could talk about favorite paleo artists all the time. John Tedrick, when he does dinosaurs. He doesn't really do paleo art. He does like magical dinosaurs, but they're still cool. They're really awesome. Is there any evidence showing that birds are not from dinosaurs? There is bad research with the claim that birds are not from dinosaurs, but no, in my opinion, there's no convincing evidence that birds are from anywhere outside of Dinosauria. It's just the fact that they are, if you dug up a bird skeleton without the pre-assumption that it was a bird, you would classify it as a dinosaur because it has all the diagnostic traits of a dinosaur. Is this stuff with real T-Rex sound genuine? No.
No, the Padre fan, you are being muted because you are spamming in chat. I'll mute you again if you don't stop.
Yeah, please only type your questions once. I have a person with me, my mod. And she's very cool and very nice. She's also my roommate, and she will read your questions to me if I miss them.
Yes, if they... Yeah. Someone was asking about
Yeah.
dinosaurs being on the ark
Yeah.
repeatedly, and I was like,
It's there's no harsh feelings if you're doing that. I'm not upset. I'm not furious. It just makes it easier for me to read chat if everybody only types their questions
Yeah.
once. Why do we call the Cenozoic the age of mammals and birds if birds were about just as common? True birds were certainly more common during the Cenozoic because they were not competing with enantiornithines anymore. There were a lot of like almost birds around during the end Cretaceous that were filling many of the niches that the true birds could have been. So like in certain areas of the world, you just had seed eaters and insect eaters being enantiornithines as opposed to true birds. Branching off to a real sound question. If so, then what do you think they would have sound like? Early dinosaurs definitely had a more archosaurian sound. It would probably be more bird-like than what you would expect from a crocodile. But I'm going to take this as a time to do my classic early sauropodomorph sound that I always do when people ask me this question. Yeah, so that's my early sauropodomorph question. I imagine maybe a young Plateosaurus would be making that. Do you have any facts about Sue the T-Rex? She is super barrel-chested for a T-Rex. I don't know why specifically. She just has a very wide rib cage among T-Rex. Could we actually clone dinosaurs like in Jurassic Park and stuff? No. DNA doesn't last that long. DNA degrades naturally. It's an unstable molecule, so it has a tendency to fall apart.
Did you get to the question about
Dinosaurs in the Ark?
no, dinosaurs on the west coast of the U.S.?
There are just fewer dinosaurs from the west coast of the U.S. Generally, West Coast paleontology is not as good. There was a lot of it's a lot of marine environments. There are a few dinosaurs from the West Coast, but the sedimentary environment is just not as favorable for dinosaur preservation, as a combination of them being more marine deposits and just the rock chemistry being not as good for preservation.
Ark is not particularly accurate as games go.
At this point, should birds be considered a Cenozoic diverse mammal, including opposite birds? I mean, if you include the things that aren't birds that kind of look like birds, then no, birds. If you're including that in your definition of birds as like things with bird vibes, they were definitely as diverse, if not more diverse, than Maastrichtian than in the Cenozoic. But like the true birds were absolutely more diverse than Cenozoic. Please tell me some drama centered around a new paper. Can't think of anything off the top of my head. Probably the most drama I've seen around a new paper is people arguing online about how to reconstruct the cartilaginous or keratinous horn on the nose of Tamaryraptor. Because Joshua Knoop did a fine, an excellent even illustration for the paper of Tamaryraptor being like redescribed. And he did it with a little keratinous crest on the nose. And then a bunch of people started drawing it with the exact same keratinous crest, even though he made it very clear, both publicly and the people who made the paper also made it clear that keratinous crest was very, very speculative. It's based on a tiny, tiny piece of bone that maybe could have supported a crest, because that crest isn't the kind of thing that would fossilize. It's speculation. It's fine speculation. It's even well-founded speculation because it's based off of a minimal osteological like correlate. But then people are like, okay, you can't do Tamaryraptor with a crest anymore. But no, it's fun. It's fine and enjoyable paleontology speculation. Yeah. What kind of mammals existed during the times of the dinosaurs? Mostly a lot of nocturnal small stuff. In the early Triassic, I believe you had some monotremes. Or maybe not even the early Triassic. No, monotremes actually showed up in the Cretaceous. The earliest mammals did show up in the Triassic, debatably. But we get mammal fossils are kind of sparse up until like the mid-Jurassic, mid-Cretaceous. And you don't really get non-egg-laying mammals for sure until like placental mammals until the Paleogene in terms of fossil material. They might have been present in the Cretaceous, but did dinosaurs have feathers? Yes. What was the most diverse group of small non-dinosaurian reptiles? What is your definition of small? I don't think Allosaurus anax could be Saurophaganax maximus again, particularly because Saurophaganax maximus is now a sauropod. I think if there is a convincing argument made to reunite the specimens that used to be considered the holotype, then maybe. But it's a really messy situation, because if they reconsider the parts of the Allosaurid that were making up the Saurophaganax holotype as Saurophaganax again, then they have to find a new name for that sauropod.
Someone was asking about if you heard the newer idea of what they Tyrannosaurus sounded like. I'm not sure.
That is the accurate T-Rex, quote, accurate T-Rex noise. There's no actual reconstruction of T-Rex sound that is justified.
Oh, is that just like the stuff that goes around on TikTok?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
not...
There's a lot of those videos. They're not particularly, a lot of them don't tend to be very well informed.
J.K. Allard, I would say the most diverse group of small non-dinosaurian reptiles. There are a lot of I don't know when Squamata really got its stride, but in the Jurassic, in general, I think Lepidosauria, which is a superorder rather than an order of reptiles, but Lepidosaurs are pretty diverse throughout dinosaur time. What kind of degree do you need to get into paleontology? Most people I know that are working as full-time paleontologists are either master's students, like they're working towards their master's degree, or they already have their master's degree. And they usually did an undergrad in biology or geology or something along the lines. Sometimes geoscience, sometimes environmental science. How do you feel about the domestication of ankylosauruses? I don't think they'd be very easy to domesticate. They seem like very ill-tempered animals. How do we know what dinosaurs looked like? A combination of fossils that preserve external detail like skin, feathers, that sort of tissue, and osteological correlates, which are traits on the bone that line up with appearance in the skin. Were dinosaurs just the animals of their time? Like, I'm guessing I'm not going to see a Rex and a horse. I
mean, they were kind of the large predators around.
Okay. Well,
if that's what you're asking about, at least of what I'm aware.
In the Triassic, dinosaurs, in the Triassic, dinosaurs were not super dominant. There were a lot of dinosaurs in the Triassic. In the Jurassic, it was basically dinosaurs all around. But even then, in the Cretaceous up to the Cretaceous, there were still ecosystems that had large non-dinosaurian predators, be they mammals, like Repanomamus in China, or in Australia and Antarctica, there were large temnospondyl amphibians that were still surviving into the Cretaceous. Do we have any evidence of feathered dinosaurs? Yeah, there are plenty of dinosaurs that are not avian dinosaurs that have preserved feathers.
There was someone who was asking about branching thorn fossils, and asking about how rare they were. I have no idea what those were.
Branching thorn fossils, like plants?
Oh, okay.
If you're talking about plants, I do not know a lot about paleobotany, unfortunately. What dinosaurs had the worst lives? Probably a lot of the carnivores. Dilophosaurus is the one that comes to mind, particularly because the Dilophosauruses that we have they just have horrible injuries, and they were not short-lived. They lived long lives with loads and loads of injuries. The Dilophosaurus specimens that we have pretty much all have multiple kinds of cancer. Was Maiasaurus truly parental? Yeah, there's pretty good evidence for parental care in Archosaurs in general. Maiasaurus is a good example of that. I mean, we know that Maiasaurus nested communally, so parental care is pretty solidly likely. Sauropods, definitely. Is it true Spinosaurus was more seal-like? That's very hotly debated. I don't think Spinosaurus was a particularly powerful swimmer, but there are people who will say that it was.
Corey B, we have there are plenty of birds around today that have that are like there are like lots of gay birds around. It's pretty well documented in several species and
like
many
albatrosses.
species. Yeah, albatrosses, penguins. and
it's for that reason.
several others.
Yeah, and it is for that reason that they were likely gay non-avian dinosaurs as well.
Yeah, homosexuality is, I think, fairly common in animals.
It's incredibly common. It is present in a lot of different species.
Let's see. Oh my gosh, a bunch of questions.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Which dinosaur do you think would like dog treats the most? I mean, dogs, generally speaking, are carnivorous, so probably a small carnivore with crushing teeth. Opinion on Bird Thecodon's theory. Why is it dumb and stupid even for its time? Bird Thecodon theory is insane. It is based on a lot of different false premises. Mainly the idea that feather complexity is increased with through the fossilization process, when in reality it is observably decreased by basically every... feathers will appear... My point with that is that feathers appear much less complex in the fossil record than they are in light, and this is documented. This is known. There have been fossilization simulations on living birds where their feathers come out looking much more like hair. So where they treated that as evidence for birds actually being thecodonts is significantly evidence against it. The idea that birds are synapsids rather than diapsid archosaurs specifically, they have all of the openings in the skull. They would have had to evolve so many convergent traits to even be considered synapsids. They would have had to devolve so many of the diagnostic traits for synapsids. It is vibes-based science, really.
Let's see. Someone asked a question that...
Was Tyrannosaurus regina a real thing? No. Tyrannosaurus regina and imperator are invalid species. Tyrannosaurus macraneensis is currently recognized, though.
Oh, yeah. Silver is Lost asked a little bit ago about how communal or parental behavior could be shown in fossils. If I am remembering correctly...
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the ways that could be shown is through finding a lot of adult and child specimens of dinosaurs preserved together.
That goes more into sustained lifestyle as opposed to parental care. If you want to look at parental care, there is probably the best research I know about this is in pterosaurs, where they look at the ontogeny of pterosaurs, and they find out that a lot of pterosaurs, just like modern birds, were broadly altricial rather than precocial, which basically means that they were not functional for the first several weeks of their life, which indicates parental care would be necessary for those animals to survive. They would not survive if they were not being fed daily. And it's not true of all pterosaurs, but a lot of pterosaurs certainly did exhibit parental care. When it comes to dinosaurs, there's a lot of research into dinosaur nesting site dynamics. So, for example, hadrosaurs, Maiasaurus specifically, is known to return to the same nesting site year after year, and they presumably stay with those eggs in community for an extended period of time. It's not, generally true across all dinosaurs, but it is true in various groups of dinosaurs that parental care is present.
There's somebody asking about the difference between Sarcosuchus and Deinosuchus.
Sarcosuchus is not a crocodilian. Deinosuchus is a crocodilian. Specifically, it's an alligatorid. So it's related to alligators and caimans. Some people say it's an alligator or a caiman. That's not really true. It's kind of like saying a velociraptor is a bird. Sarcosuchus is not. It looks like a gharial by pure coincidence. It's a folosaurid, which is a kind of like, I think, crocodilomorph, but it is not very closely related to modern crocodiles. It lived in a similar niche, but that is the reason why it looks like that through convergent evolution rather than any proper shared ancestry. Do you think the Jurassic Park World movies had accurate representation of the dinosaurs' appearance? No. There are loads of videos breaking down, the differences in each dinosaur species. The Skeleton Crew probably has the best video series that you could imagine, where they go through literally every design that has appeared, not just in those movies, but also in the game Jurassic World Evolution, too.
I've watched a large part of that series from the Skeleton Crew on YouTube. It's great. I, as someone who is not as knowledgeable about dinosaur stuff, it's really cool, and I have learned a decent bit from watching it. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, Skeleton Crew is super cool. They're all great people. They're friends of friends. So I wholly recommend them. And I've heard great things about them both as paleontologists and as homies. I have actually talked to James Napoli on occasion over the internet. He got me a lot of good advice that I probably would not be doing my research without. So go support the Skeleton Crew. If not because you genuinely like their content, which you should, it's great. But as a thank you for, getting me to where I am, I guess.
There was someone asking about whether we have found fossilized skin or feathers.
Yes, both.
Yes, both. Yeah.
I was on a dig where we found fossilized Diplodocus skin a couple years ago in the
Was it-
Morrison Formation.
Just like impressions of it.
Yeah,
Or
it was skin impression. So it was what we call the anti-slab, or the cast. But yeah, so we did find Diplodocus skin impressions, but you also do find proper fossilized skin in places like Xinjiang in China. Sometimes that skin has feathers attached to it, so it's like a done deal. Yeah.
The person asking if there is a dinosaur-like creature in the Congo. All birds are dinosaurs.
But there is not
there
Mokele Membe is not real.
Oh,
There's
okay,
there's
I
an
don't know.
interview regarding Mokele Membe that was done with some Congolese folks where they really clearly and objectively identified it as being a jungle rhinoceros and nothing
Jungle
else.
rhinoceros.
Yeah.
Cool.
So no, Mokele Membe is not real.
Yeah, you know what people are like vaguely asking about so much better than I do. Someone asking. Let's see. Oh my gosh, that was like a huge burst of questions.
This is the Ilioischio-caudalis, and then this is. So the Ilioischio-caudalis is adapted to the electric organ here.
Gun in the book. The oxygen levels during the Mesozoic were actually slightly higher than they were today.
Slightly higher or slightly
or-
lower, depending on
yeah,
the study you look at.
Close enough to where they
Yeah.
were, where they are today, that the oxygen levels wouldn't be really any issue for like dinosaurs from the Mesozoic if they were alive today. J.K. Alad is asking. I have no idea what that is.
Phegodonts aren't synapsids. I thought they sprouted archosaurs. I may be stupid.
Evan, there probably were gay dinosaurs because there are today. There are gay birds, so almost definitely.
Okay, so two things about Phegodonta. One, they are archosaurs, or they were archosaurs at the time. But secondly, it's an invalid taxon now. It doesn't really describe a group of it's not a monophyletic grouping. So I was incorrect. I was thinking of not Phegodonts. Shoot, what are they called? Therocephalians, I think. But in general, birds have so many derived archosaurian traits that are also shared with dinosaurs that I think that theory is still wholly unfounded. Particularly because, we have evidence of feathered dinosaurs and also feathered pterosaurs.
Yeah, this person has been asking about this for a bit.
Is the Leviathan a real animal? I heard it used to take on the Megalodon in ancient times. I don't know anything about interactions between Leviathan and Megalodon, but I do know that Leviathan was a real animal. It was a large-toothed whale. How big is Ostrophryggosaurus? I don't think Ostrophryggosaurus is a valid genus anymore. Let me see what it was referred to. It is based on a single tooth.
Oh, okay.
It is a dubious Spinosaurus genus from Tendaguru.
For the person asking if dinosaurs or animals from the Jurassic and Cretaceous reappearing could happen, very, very unlikely, although technically, theoretically, something like that could happen. It won't.
Thoughts on Opabinia? Opabinia is baller. It's preem. It's how do people say goated? Is that still a thing that people say to say goated? Hey, Azalea.
Yeah.
Can you tell which one of these this is?
Nope.
Okay.
I am too. Those are the same color.
This is my two
I am
buttons.
too colorblind.
This is
I hate color-based diagrams.
Yeah. This is the
People
one
need
just
to label their diagrams or other things with things other than colors. As somebody who is doing game design, do use something other than colors to indicate things in things you make. There are so many things in games that just use color, and as somebody who is colorblind, it makes them completely impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, that is the Cotto from Morales.
Like, I either have to, a lot of the time, install mods to change things, or occasionally I have to cheat in games to figure something out based on color.
It's very terrible that you're forced into that situation.
Well, that specific example was from something I was doing earlier today in Binding of Isaac, where I couldn't tell the color of something.
Why do people say that dinosaurs never existed? Why would they say that there are fossils? Because dinosaurs existing usually threatens something about their preconceived notions about the world. It's never that they're not convinced that dinosaurs exist. They have to have a reason, because nobody who's coming into understanding what a dinosaur is blind is going to just reject that evidence on its face because it's, quote, not conclusive, because it is conclusive. It's incredibly conclusive. Even like the most naturally skeptical person, if they were coming in blind, would understand that a dinosaur is a real taxonomic group that exists. Frankly, the reason, like I said, that people reject dinosaurs is because the existence of dinosaurs or something about it threatens their worldview.
Someone asking about T-Rex being covered in feathers and saying it is not. Why do people keep saying that?
Covered in feathers, yes. Covered in pennaceous feathers, no. It probably had, thin, monofilamentary feathers that would have been used to keep itself cold. Yeah, and in regards to pennaceous feathers in Tyrannosaurids, they're not super supported by the evidence, but monofilamentary feathers appear everywhere within Tyrannosauria, and we have large Tyrannosauroids that are completely covered in monofilamentary feathers.
Vic, when it comes to knowing that some dinosaurs had rough skin and others had feathers, I'm not sure if there are things other than this, but I know we do have skin impressions and feather impressions, or just I think some fossilized feathers in like some cases. From dinosaurs, so we do know that some dinosaurs had feathers and some likely did not, at least on parts of them. I don't know if there are other things as well that indicate those.
Yeah. The term, the clade Thecodonta is defined by such a broad classification that it was just not useful for organizing animals that were related to each other, because we use thecodont now as an anatomical term, which is teeth that develop from sockets. And so many different groups of animals have different kinds of socketed teeth that Thecodontia is just not a useful taxon. Do T-Rexes sound different than in the movies? We don't really know much about how T-Rexes sounded. Any claims that you see of people knowing what T-Rex sounded like are bunk. They're not based on research or anything like that.
I was asking about could Titanoboa survive today, and where would it be?
Titanoboa would probably be basically doing the same thing as a green anaconda, but in a more productive ecosystem. It was a large aquatic snake. It would have been doing large aquatic snake things. I doubt Titanoboa is alive. It would be very easy to spot and diagnose. There is an anaconda species that is claimed to have been newly discovered, and it was the largest anaconda ever. But the issue with people claiming that is evidence that Titanoboa could still survive is the fact that anaconda species has been known about informally for ages. It was just recently described. Which is basically like the same thing of saying dinosaurs were invented in 1826. I mean, it's not nearly as stupid because it comes from a reasonable misunderstanding of a headline. But in general, species are known about a long, long time before they get formally described and categorized, because description and categorization takes a much longer time than going out into the woods and saying, that's definitely new. And so we have a bunch of informal journal articles or journal entries that say, hey, that's something new. Then we do long papers explaining exactly why that something is so new. What is this? Do you believe in Hollow Earth? No, I do not believe in Hollow Earth.
Like, so many things that just disprove Hollow Earth.
Yeah,
It's just not a thing.
It's an interesting fiction, but it's not at all factually justified.
I think my favorite, like, Hollow Earth kind of thing is there's a book series that I like where there's like a series of different worlds people go to, and one of them is on the inside of a planet, or like it's like a structure that would basically be the inside of a planet, although it is much smaller than a regular planet would be, or like Earth would be, and the sun in the sky is like in the middle, and the stars are like these glowing citadels that have been constructed around by an ancient civilization.
That's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool.
It's like Viberia.
Maybe? Kinda? Ark Survival Evolved is not particularly accurate.
No, it is not.
Most complete dinosaur fossil we've found so far. I think there are several that are pretty complete.
There are several dinosaurs that are 100% complete, as in all the bones are accounted for. In terms of, being complete beyond the bones, Sinosauropteryx is definitely the most well-preserved dinosaur fossil that we have that includes every element of the skeleton.
How long would you say it took for you to join a field work project or dig?
I did that before I was in paleontology. I was doing field work when I was in high school, just as a volunteer. About a year and a half of doing full-time research, I just got accepted to my first paid field position where I'll actually be getting paid to go out in the field and do research, and that's going to be this summer. But historically, I've just been volunteering. But it's really not that difficult. I mean, you can get into the field with a surprising amount of ease.
Let's see. This person's saying that somebody else was asking what materials a Pachycephalosaurus could and couldn't break through. That is cool.
I don't know. We would have to do a lot of finite element analysis on the bones, and then also a bunch of finite element analysis on the material. And I don't know if there is a compelling reason to fund that sort of research. It would be cool to know, but in terms of the actual strength of Pachycephalosaurus's dome, I'm not super in tune with the research regarding what it could break through and what it couldn't.
Someone was asking about whether dinosaurs had cloaca. We actually have a fossilized cloaca from a Psittacosaurus specimen, which was really, really well preserved.
Yes, we do.
And then someone else was asking, have they found any dinosaur blood or tissue in amber? There is a piece of a fossilized dinosaur tail, I think.
Yes,
in amber.
Not in amber, but we have actually found original, very, very tiny, pretty much individual proteins of dinosaur tissue that's not completely permineralized, where there is some original biological material.
If you're wondering, for Jurassic Park reasons,
no,
it would not be possible.
The DNA is not there.
Yeah, no.
I'm talking about collagen
yeah.
and blood vessel wall tissues and things like that. No, not technically a dinosaur, but opinions on correct neck anatomy for a plesiosaur. It's a really good question. I don't know if there's any real. I feel like consensus on plesiosaur neck anatomy is pretty solid in that they were relatively heavily muscled, tapered towards the base, and probably about as thick as the skull at the skull attachment point.
J.K. Allen is asking about the color palette of pterosaurs, whether they were gray, red, and black, or if they had more interesting patterns and colors. And while you were looking into that, someone brought up the woolly mice. They are interesting. I believe the company working on those said that they aren't really contributing, like they aren't really indicative of any progress toward their eventual goal. So they're neat, they're cute. I like them. What happened to the Spinosaurus? There's been just kind of a lot of research from 2 different labs on Spinosaurus in the last several years, or a couple decades maybe, and they keep kind of going back and forth on that. Last time a new dinosaur was discovered. New dinosaurs are discovered all the time. I don't know exactly when the last one was.
I mean, there was the Australian stuff earlier, like a couple weeks ago. That was like 3 or 4 new species that were reported but not named. I'm checking the PaleoStream Discord now to see if there is anything new in there.
First dinosaur. Oh god, what were the first 2 dinosaurs?
Megalosaurus and Iguanodon.
That's what it was.
A new titanosaur, Chad Titan Calvoy,
Nice.
discovered 4 days ago from Chad, the
Chad
country
Titan.
in Central Africa. And it is described in association with a new fossiliferous location. Oh, never mind. There's a new
Was
new
this
dinosaur.
just posted?
I don't know. This was no, this is the
was
day
just 3
after
days
Chad
ago.
Titan. Okay, we'll keep going. The Chad Titan paper is not available anyway.
Okay.
But this is an early
Ooh.
Ornithischian from Scotland.
Scotland. All
Oh,
right.
not even an early Ornithischian, potentially an early ornithopod.
Oh, interesting.
Indicating an individual growing slowly at the time of death. It was mature at 8 years of age. And it is apparently the world's oldest ornithopodon body fossil. What is it called? I don't know if they named it, but it was a new dinosaur.
For the people in chat asking about dinosaurs fighting and which would win, yeah.
I don't like talking about that. They're
Um,
animals, and they were not like fighting game characters.
Yeah,
I can respect the idea of animals like fighting each other and it being cool, but as a researcher, it's not really my position to.
And it's really, I mean, that's really a thing that's been kind of made such a kind of big cultural idea because of all of the media around dinosaurs fighting each other.
I don't want to feed more.
It's not
into that.
particularly an accurate idea.
Yeah, so it looks
why-
like the Scottish ornithopod.
Why is the Western Gobi such a hotspot for fossils?
The Nemeth Formation in particular just is really excellent depositionally. It's a mix of desert locality, which can bury large body fossils, and I believe a braided river system, which can bury a lot of small stuff. It has excellent preservation quality in some aspects and terrible preservation quality in others. The fossils that come out of the Western Gobi are almost visually and visually and texturally indistinct from real bone, which is really cool if you think about it. And then when you think about it more, it becomes really, really difficult because it's hard to tell fossil bone from real bone in the Gobi if it's removed partially from a matrix. Generally, a qualified paleontologist will look at it and tell you. But the main issue is that it is almost impossible to prepare. I watched this talk from the preparator at the AMNH, who was talking about Gobi Desert fossils and preparation techniques. And you have to use so much glue because these things will crumble in your hands as you're air scribing them because they are so light. The T-Rex actually have feathers? Yeah, probably monofilamentary feathers.
There was someone asking me a bit ago about what some good books would be that would be informational but understandable for middle schoolers.
For middle schoolers. I'm trying to think about what dinosaur books I read in middle school. Depends on how late you are in middle school. I was in 8th grade the first time I started reading Michael J. Benton's Vertebrate Paleontology 3rd edition. Maybe 9th grade. For middle schoolers.
What do you think about All Yesterdays?
All Yesterdays is a little bit esoteric. It's definitely accessible for early high schoolers. But it's not, it kind of assumes a level of knowledge about paleontology.
That's true. Yeah.
That a middle schooler probably wouldn't have. It is written in a very accessible way. It's written for the public, and any adult could definitely pick that up and read it if you're at like a high school reading level. But I don't know if you could get a lot out of it unless you're pretty into paleontology.
Yeah.
Tell you what, this book is pretty accessible here. Dinosaurs: A Concise Natural History by Fastovsky and Weishampel is a textbook, but I found it very accessible when I was reading it. What's the biggest Rex-type dino? The biggest Tyrannosauroid is Tyrannosaurus rex. So T-Rex is the biggest, quote, Rex-type dino. It's the biggest carnivore. What is your opinion on Parasaurolophus sound being relatively accurate in T-Rex? Parasaurolophus sound is accurate in the range of sounds projected, probably, but not really in the articulation of them. T-Rex, we don't know anything. How do you know how old are dino when they died? Like 8 years old. We use primarily lag lines to figure that out. When you cut open the long bone of an animal, it has rings kind of like a tree, and those rings form when growth rapidly slows. So if you're growing quickly for a period of time, like 6 months, and then your growth rapidly slows, then it forms a line in the bone called a lag line. And those lag lines form reliably every year when animals undergo harsh winters, because food is going to be abundant during some parts of the year and then difficult to find during other parts of the year. And no matter how generalist you are, there's going to be fluctuations in food availability, and those will form lag lines.
Micah was asking about how we can tell their diet.
Coprolites, tooth isotope analysis, and comparative anatomy with living organisms.
And also, we sometimes have dinosaurs preserved
with their
stuff in
stomach contents. That I guess I'm lumping
I
that.
feel like that's kind of the
That's
most
a big one.
obvious.
Yeah, but so we use the known data and then we extrapolate it with the unknown data, basically. So, if we find a kind of dinosaur with teeth very similar to another dinosaur that we know guaranteed the diet of via stomach contents or predation marks on nearby animals or that sort of thing, then we can extrapolate that, these teeth are almost exactly the same. It was probably eating a comparable food source from its own paleo environment. We're going to get the last guest up for the night, Brady. Welcome up, Brady. What's your question?
Yo.
Hello.
Hi. So, my question is, what's the coolest dinosaur and why is it Triceratops?
Okay. I'll humor you. I think Triceratops is really cool. Particularly because it has that giant solid frill that's even more dense and powerful compared to the other ceratopsians. Because you see the other ceratopsians, they have those big fenestrae in their frill. Triceratops just has this solid shield of bone that's so cool. And we have some pretty serious fossil evidence of Triceratops kind of shrugging off tyrannosaur bites, which is not something that most dinosaurs could do. I do not think Triceratops gets enough credit for being as powerful of an animal as it definitely was.
Thank you. They're so cool. They'd be the most useful dinosaur. I think they'd be very easy to train. I think they'd be docile.
I don't know about docile.
No, they're homies.
They're a very threatening animal. I don't know if I would
Not
get
to
in.
me. Maybe to you, but to me, he'd just be my boy.
Hey, you know what?
No, but thank you for talking to me,
If you
buddy.
got that attitude, I bet they would cooperate.
Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, of course.
Have a great evening.
The longest dinosaur name, Yael Lopez, is Micropachycephalosaurus, and then its species name, and the shortest one is Yiki. Micropachycephalosaurus.
Oh my god.
Hongtuienensis.
Oh my god. Micropachycephalosaurus hongtuienensis. Oh my god.
And the longest name of an extinct animal, period, is... the species name is Septentrionalis, and the full binomial name is Parapropaleohoplophoros septentrionalis.
Oh my god.
Septentrionalis. Which the full order domain name is Eukaryota, Animalia, Chordata, Mammalia, Cingulata, Calamimorphidae, Glyptodontidae, Parapropaleo, Hoplophorus, Septentrionalis.
Whoa.
Um,
To the person asking about where to start, who's graduating high school soon to get into paleontology.
Go to a college. You definitely want to go to college if you're going to get into paleontology. But as far as what you do in college, try and major in biology, geology, environmental science, something that is applicable there, where you'll get experience both with organismal biology and concepts about evolution, and geology concepts as well, because those are the two things that you really need to understand if you want to get into paleontology. Try and shoot for a college that has access to a local museum. I believe Rowan University is joining that list relatively quickly. Rowan, New Jersey is opening up the Edelman Fossil Park Museum that I definitely want to go visit when that opens. So that's super exciting. And they have an active dig site there, I believe, as well. So there are loads of the universities that are either affiliated with or nearby with museums that you can take some time to volunteer at. I didn't really get a ton of paleontology experience in my undergrad. I still don't get a ton. I mean, I take some classes, but most of my experience in the field doing either research or actual work in paleontology is because I'm working with museums that I have access to because of the connections that I'm making through volunteering.
So Drip has been drawing stuff for the Ray Dow
Sure,
video.
why not? Let's do a teaser for everybody who's in here.
People who are here for the Monster Hunter stuff, get hyped.
If you're here for the
so
Monster Hunter
cool.
stuff, this is what I have for Ray Dow so far. I have the lower jaw, the mandible and the maxillary anatomy here. I have this little shot that I took of a Ray Dow flying away from its lightning strike. This is not a real animal, by the way, everybody. This is a Monster Hunter creature. I have the leg anatomy here. Ray Dow has some really interesting leg anatomy. It's actually very similar to avians. There's not really an equivalent of Brachiosaurus today. All the sauropods died out. Devil Joe may come eventually. Right now I'm doing everything in Wilds because Wilds is like one unified ecosystem.
Devil Joe might show up in Wilds.
Yeah.
Actually, Devil Joe was in 4, right?
Yeah, and Devil Joe was in 3 and 4.
Yeah, so maybe.
Here I have a breakdown of the inside of the horn, and then I have the bottom side of the horn. Here I have a breakdown of the tail, which I think is super cool because you can see the electric organs down here, which are adapted from the ilioischiocaudalis. Ray Dow also has a glottis in its throat that sits on top of the tongue, which is interesting. I think that's super cool. It definitely contributes to my idea that Ray Dow might actually be an avian rather than like a pterosaur or something. What was the first dinosaur we ever found? The first thing to be placed into the group Dinosauria is Megalosaurus, Bucklandii. And then here we have a skeletal diagram of the wings. So you have the humerus here, which I just realized I didn't label, so I have to label that. Here.
Have you played Fossil Fighters? There's someone who's been asking about that.
No, I actually haven't. I really should. I'm capping my pencil right now. Yeah. So here we have the humerus of Ray Dow, and then it has these really bizarre kind of short, curved radius in ulna, and then a radiale and an ulnare, at least as I've interpreted it. And then this is kind of ambiguous because these digits are probably fused. Because I was just looking at external anatomy. Obviously, I can't cut this animal open in real life and look at what it is, but you have this, which is probably a single fused bone for the alula, which is separate here, as you can see. And then here is the carpometacarpus and then all that stuff. Like I said here, it has a gigantic alula. Here is the other chunk of Ray Dow that I've been doing. Oh, there we go. Oh.
Does not want to stay in place.
Yeah, there's the up close and personal Ray Dow portrait that I spent ages on. This also I spent ages on, but this is mostly ages was spent on the research and me writing down what I think this animal is like. Super cool creature. surprisingly able to coexist with the Bonos. They don't seem to attack each other. Anyway, super cool. Thanks everybody for coming by, and I'm glad everybody got to have a good time in the stream. Good night, everybody. Stay tuned for the Ray Dow video if you're here for Monster Hunter stuff.
Before you finish up the stream,
you want to plug my YouTube channel?
Yeah, go check out Dryptosaurus on YouTube. There's been more work going into that recently. So previous streams, clips from streams, stuff like that, started being uploaded to there. So
there we go.
Check it out if you're interested.
Yes, go check out my YouTube channel. It's pretty cool if I do say so myself. A lot of Monster Hunter content is on there. You can also check out my TikTok playlist that I just made for all my Monster Hunter stuff if that's what you're into. I talk about paleo mostly on the streams, and then my actual videos are have been more Monster Hunter science communication focused right now. But I will plan to still make paleo videos if some interesting news comes out. Definitely going to make one covering the new Spinosaurus stuff when that happens, but yeah, thanks everybody for coming by. Please follow my YouTube channel if you want to see some clips of these streams. There are some interesting folks that I've talked to, both positively and negatively. My favorite dinosaur is Acrocanthosaurus atokensis. And I will see everybody when I see everybody.